It's the start of a new year, right? We have December 31st was 5 days ago, in case you have not remembered that, because I forgot is our title for today. But as I go back those 5 days, what resolutions did you make? Did they look like some of these? Did you have some big ones that you were going to go on? Actually, here's a bigger question for you. What were your resolutions for 2019? And how many of those came out? How many of those worked out for you? Sometimes we forget all these things. We make these plans, and we have these resolutions, and we want to continue on doing them, but we forget about them. But that doesn't end the hype of the new year. But why do we like the new year? I think we do it because it offers a fresh start. And that new year opens an opportunity for us to start over again. We can forget about the last 365 days and look forward to the next 365 days. But it's just not the fresh start that's there, because I think about God for a moment. Does God wait for a new year to have this fresh start? Does God wait for that December 31st deadline, or that December 25th when we celebrate the birth of Christ, or that Easter Sunday and that fresh starts again? I don't think so. I think it really begins. I think it really begins every day. And I think Lamentations 3, 22 and 23 help us see that. So it's on the screen if you would join me in reading it. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed. For his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. And now these words may seem like they don't have that much power to them. They may just seem like words that we see on billboards or in Christmas cards or get well cards and all these things. But these words are very powerful. They're very powerful because they speak about God. They speak about a new day, a new start. But that new start is really what we need to look at for a moment. To see the background of this Lamentations. Why is this so powerful? I think it's so powerful because it begins with the title of the 6 chapters. They're called Lamentations. And a lament is a cry of sorrow and grief. So this new day, this love that never fails, it's actually, the word isn't quite love, it's mercies. But this mercies that, God's great mercies, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. Maybe again we need to get some more background information as to why this is important. Because we got to look at what Jeremiah is dealing with. Jeremiah is the author of this book. If you read the book of Jeremiah in the Old Testament, you'll see that he continues to weep and he continues to seek out people and continues to open up a doorway for them to change their heart. But in Lamentations is written after that. Lamentation is written after his hometown, Jerusalem, the place that he's loved, the place that he's grown up, has been destroyed. Not just destroyed, annihilated. There's a picture here, and all we can have is just artist rendering. You see the great fire off to the right of that, and that's kind of the city itself. But maybe to give you some idea of what has happened here. So back in these days, they didn't have weapons of mass destruction like we do, where wars could be done with in a quickly timed manner, that a city or a town could be devastated within a matter of hours in today's world. Jerusalem was under siege for almost a year. So think about that for a minute. The way they protected themselves, they had walls, thick walls. Really thick walls, and so the enemy couldn't come in, or they could be protected that way, but the walls also offered opportunity for someone to come in and lay siege. Basically, they built a wall around the city and wouldn't let people in or out, wouldn't let food in or out, wouldn't let water in or out for a year. Well, think about that for a moment. Think about not getting groceries for a year, that you had to use whatever was in the grocery store. We have a run on a grocery store for a week, and I remember back in 2015 when we had the water thing and all the water burst, and water was out in all the grocery stores, and it took them. They said, "Well, we don't have any more, but come back tomorrow and we'll have more." But it was an inconvenience to come back tomorrow, wasn't it? Jerusalem went through that for a year before the Babylonians busted in the wall. Not only did they bust in the wall, they took care of some of the people there. Not only did they take care of the people there, but take care of them by meaning capture them, bring them off into their land, make them slaves, make them do work that they weren't used to doing. They also destroyed the wall. So they would left no stone on top of each other. So when I talk about annihilation, I literally mean the city was annihilated. The people were annihilated. They were devastated. Now, we may not think that's kind of where we are today, but if we think about it for a minute, let's look at it at a bigger picture view. As Jeremiah is sitting there weeping and crying over the loss of everything he has known, we can relate to that. His security is gone. Some of us have experienced maybe a break-in or maybe something stolen from us. And that sense of security, that sense of being safe has been removed. The people that Jeremiah loved, his friends, his family, some of them are gone, not coming back. Some have died. Some have been taken as captives. We can understand that. We understand that. We've seen relationships being broken. We've seen marriages dissolve. Spouses not talking to each other. Children wondering where they're whose weekend is it? We understand that. We can relate to that brokenness. A sanctuary. The Temple of Jerusalem was also destroyed in that moment. And it was taken apart, desecrated. The holy things were removed and taken into captivity and not to be seen again. That sense that God was with them has been shattered. Again, we can relate to that. As there are times we wonder where God is in the midst of all the suffering and the pain, as we wonder the sanctuary that we come to, the sanctuary where we understand who God is, has been broken. And we have this lament. And it's not just this hometown that's annihilated, because also Jeremiah comes to realize, and during the chapters 1 and 2, but he comes to see that the people could have changed. That they had this opportunity of being changed. They had this opportunity of coming to God and saying, God, we're sorry, forgive us. And repenting and turning from their ways, but they didn't. So Jeremiah doesn't put the blame of Jerusalem being destroyed upon God. It's a shift for humanity to see that. It's a shift for us to see that, because it's easier to blame God, right? Go back to Adam and Eve in Genesis chapter 2 or chapter 3. When they take the bite of the apple, who does Adam blame? He blames Eve. How does he blame Eve? Well, the woman that you made. And Eve blames the serpent. The serpent that you made. That blame goes right back to God. And if we look at ourselves and if we're really honest inside our hearts, there are times where we blame God for our decisions, our consequences. And Jeremiah says these consequences, that's not, God told us this is what was going to happen and we didn't believe him. We could have changed. And that's what makes this powerful. That's what makes this lament so powerful, because it's not only is it the cry of grief and sorrow that everything that he's known has been taken away from him, that it's his and the people's decisions, the consequences of such things that have gotten them this far. And in the midst of that, Jeremiah pens these words from God, Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed. For his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. So there's some words in here that we need to understand. Let's look at in verse 22, it says the Lord's great love. Well, in Hebrew, the word's not love, the word is mercy. God's great mercies. And mercy does mean love, but it also means leniency. It means that we don't receive what we should. It means there's kindness and goodness that's given to us. That the Lord has not consumed us. Now go back to where Jeremiah is writing these words as he's seen his friends being consumed. He's seen his security being consumed. He saw his faith and his trust being consumed. And he says, God, your mercy, because of your great mercy, we are not consumed. It's a new day. It's a new hope. It's a new way of living. That I'm not being consumed by these things that others are. I'm not being consumed by these struggles because there's something different. Because God's compassions fail not. And compassion is also has some different meanings for us too. Compassion means tender love, is what it's Hebrew, what the Hebrew says. A tender love, and the picture is an unborn baby and a mother's love for that baby that's still in the womb. So picture these things that God, as Jeremiah is writing these things, everything he's known has been taken away from him. But in the midst of that, he says that God's great mercies to not consume, given him an opportunity of not being consumed. And God's great compassion, his great love has not failed. There's one more thing that I think we need to look at before we start applying it to our day. Because it's not just God's mercy, it's not just God's compassion that fails not. At the end of that, he says that they are new every morning. Every morning. Every morning is a fresh start. Every morning is something great and spectacular. Every morning we wake up, there's a new mercy that God has given to us. There's a new compassion that he's sharing with us. He's opening up that doorway. For Jeremiah, he got up that morning and he says, oh God, how great it is. Great is your faithfulness. Even in the consequences of our sin, even in the consequences of our decisions, even in the consequences of this total annihilation, you are still here. You are still showing me mercy and leniency. You are still loving me and wrapping me up in your arms. That's a new day. That's a new dawn. That's a new hope that we haven't had. That's a new opportunity for us to gravitate towards. And what does it look like? It looks like so many wonderful things. It looks like that God loves me each day. That each day I'm forgiven. Each day God provides for what I need. Each day God sees me. Each day, God meets us where we are. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter how close you are or how far away from God. Each day, God shares with us new mercies, and his compassions fail not. Because each day, he meets us. Each day is a new opportunity for us to see something beautiful in the midst of the destruction. In the midst of our lives, in the midst of all the hang-ups that we have and all the things that pull our attention away from God, God says, hey, you got a new mercy today. I was thinking of some, so my mind works in different ways, and I wasn't going to talk about this, but it's popped in my head again, so I'm feeling I need to. So I know this is a really, it's a financial thing, but it kind of leads me to where I was thinking about. Compounding interest. I know those of you who are like finances, math, I really don't want to talk about that, but bear with me for a minute. So compounding interest says that it compounds. So you take out, you're given some money and you put it in the bank, and there's compounding interest. So it means after the first year, you have all this money and you get more interest rate on top of it. It's not just the principal, it's not just the basic what you put into it, but it continues to grow. I bring that out because I think we look at that new mercies and God's compassions. Those new mercies continue to grow. Yeah, they're new for today, but it's something that God's already been building in our life. It's something that God already started. Jeremiah already knew that God was going to do some new things. He understood it because he had seen God work and build up to that. And in our heart and in our life, we see the same things. Sometimes we get held down because we think God's just going to do the same thing he did yesterday. But God's not. He's building on that new hope. He's building on that promise. He's building on that mercy he gave us. And he reminds us that we are forgiven. Even when it was something we did 20 years ago, we haven't really released it. God says it's no longer there. I love you so much that it's removed. And even in the midst of the consequences of what we've done, that God says that his love is there with us and his mercy is there with us, and that he's still building on that to give us that hope of a new day. So when we look at those last words in verse 23, it says, "Great is thy faithfulness." Because God was being faithful in the midst of the destruction, even after the destruction. And God is still faithful in our life today, every day, because God looks like this every day. He sees us, he knows us, he loves us, he forgives us. Even in the worst of our moments, God is still faithful to us. There's a great hymn. It's number 140 in the blue books that are in front of you. And it has these words in it. Strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. And the name of the hymn is Great is Thy Faithfulness. You can look it up on YouTube. There's plenty of different people who sing it. But it's a powerful song written in the 1850s. And as soon as it was penned and as soon as it was written, it became a big hit. Because it was in those unsettled times of the Civil War that people were really wanting to understand how strong God is, that he was strength for today and hope for tomorrow. And in the midst of our lives here in the 2020s, we also live in some unsettled times. And we need to be reminded that God's new mercies are for us. That his compassions, they fail not. He's giving us strength for today and hope for tomorrow. We may forget our resolutions, but God hasn't forgotten his. He's not forgotten his new mercies. He has not forgotten his compassions. He has not forgotten who you are. God has not forsaken you. And this